right now? Okay. How many in the room are members of the League of Women Voters? Yay! How many would like to be members of the League of Women Voters? Okay, great. We're really thrilled that you're all here. We're really thrilled about this group, and I'm just going to turn it over to Mary.
Can y'all hear me? Yes. Thank you so much for having us. I know you just sat through an 1.5-hour movie. Hopefully you're feeling inspired and hopeful. We just want to go over some things that are frequently asked after the film, and then we'll open up to questions and answers. But thank you again for being here, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this. Fun fact, my daughter actually first got engaged with the book banning stuff because of a challenge from our Beaufort League of Women Voters. They asked her to pull together a group of youth and get them interested in an issue, and it was book banning. She had a meeting at our house in December and started going to the school board meetings after Izzy and Catherine was at a meeting in November. After other people started to speak out, she started to speak up. It was because of a challenge from the League of Women Voters. So full circle. I also just want to tell you, so I don't forget, there's a handout for you when you leave. They're out in the lobby, and I think there will be a volunteer passing them out, but it has some calls to action. So if you watched this movie and you felt like you needed to do something, I made you a list. And there are 3 QR codes at the bottom that you can scan to get more information. We'll talk a little bit about that when we finish the questions. Most common thing people ask is how can they watch the movie outside of a screening? It is available now for rent from Amazon Prime and Apple TV, so you can let other people know they can watch it also. And there have been screenings all over the country and actually in other parts of the world. There was just a film festival in Korea that it was a part of. So, one last common question is an update on where we are. You see at the end of the film that 91 books were returned in Beaufort County, and then the state passed Regulation 43170. Unfortunately, since it passed last summer, 21 more books have been removed from all public schools in South Carolina. They are all from our list. There are 15 more that have been challenged by the same person in Beaufort County. And if those were also removed, they were also from that original list. So we had great success, but we have now had setbacks, and that's why we need your help. We want you to be educated and engaged so you know what you can do. So I'm going to start by introducing Izzy. I'm just going to read a quick bio, and then I have a couple of questions for her. So Isabel Troy Brazovan is an aspiring rocket scientist, quite literally, a nationally recognized anti-censorship activist, and the reigning 2025 Miss Juneteenth Lowcountry. Featured in the documentary Band Together, her activism began at 17 after teaming up with peers, mentors, and community members to reinstate 97 books pulled from the shelves of Beaufort County schools. Currently, Isabella is a student at South Carolina State University. She's pursuing a dual degree in nuclear engineering, and South Carolina State is the nation's only HBCU with such a program, and space studies concentrating on aerospace science. I'm leaving out the rest because I'm going to ask you about it. So most people watch the movie and feel really inspired by the 3 students. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you, they were not the only 3. There were lots of students. They were just the lucky ones who got featured in the movie and got to have these incredible opportunities. But there were, if you saw in the clips of our board meeting, there were lots of students there who spoke up, and even some who weren't comfortable speaking up but came in solidarity. So, but you have gotten to know the 3 of them. So Izzy, I know that often really inspires people, but they're also curious about what's been going on in your life since the filming concluded, which has been almost 2 years since we stopped filming. So can you give everyone a little update about what you've been doing, maybe especially this summer?
Hey everybody, so after I graduated high school, so that was whenever we stopped filming, yeah, it was that summer, 2023, right? I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I knew, but I didn't really know. I went to Georgia Southern. I thought I wanted to do law, but it was not it for me. Activism was great. I loved the change I was able to make, but whenever it came down to like the nitty gritty of studying law was not. Rocket science was quite literally easier. I'm not even joking. I don't know why it's this phrase. Rocket science is so much easier than all this. So I went to South Carolina State because my boyfriend, we've been together since freshman year of high school, but he went to South Carolina State. Wave to everybody. He studies business at State, and so I was like, I'm just gonna go there. They have the nuclear engineering program, so that's what I wanted to do. I didn't really know what I wanted. Whenever they first asked me to be in the program, I was like, no, I don't want to make bombs. Like what? Like no. But turns out nuclear engineers do a lot more than make bombs. Who would have thought? So I got into before activism and everything. I was really into aerospace. That's really listening to what I'm doing now. So I found out that you could be a nuclear engineer and work on rockets. That's insane. So this summer I spent doing research for NASA in this program called Space. It stands for the Lucy Student Pipeline Accelerator in Competency and Teamwork. And so I was doing research on advanced propulsion systems with a team of undergraduate students. We actually just submitted our first proposal to be reviewed by NASA, and we'll find out if we're selected for the first initial fund grant, which is like $10,000. And if we're selected for that, then we continue to do research in advanced propulsion. I can't really talk about what we're doing. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's what I've been doing so far.
And anytime there's a screening that students are invited, all 3 students are always invited, just so you know. Millie is working currently, and our daughter Elizabeth is in DC for the summer. So lucky Izzy gets to be the representative. Okay, my second question for you, Izzy. This film highlights the work that you and others did your senior year of high school, and it often inspires folks to try to get more youth involved in advocacy work. I don't think the value of the youth voice can be overstated. And I personally absolutely want to encourage more young people to use their voice, but as the mom of a student advocate, I've also seen firsthand the toll that advocacy can take on young people, and you referenced the burnout you experienced at the end of the film. So what would you say was a highlight of your involvement with advocacy, and then what is one way adults can help protect students from some of the parts that were difficult for you?
So a highlight, I was really able to see that if you have a vision and you have people that are there to help this vision come to life, that nothing is impossible. I think it almost gave me like this almost like a delusional sense of like, oh, I could do anything. So I think that's really what I took away from it, was just this confidence in myself that anything I wanted to do, literally anything I wanted to do, I can do it as long as I have the right support system. And as long as we have a clear plan, and that's what we had. And as far as like helping and being for whatever student activist maybe in your life, or maybe you are a student activist, I'm not gonna try to like sugarcoat it. Like it's hard, it's difficult. I think since I first started speaking to help spread awareness about what we talk about the documentary and stuff, I've always said that activism is one of the most selfless things that you can do in this lifetime. And I don't mean like the performative activists we see on TikTok. Not throw shade at anybody or nothing like that, but true activism is one of the most selfless things you can do. It's hard, it's draining, there's tears, and I think that the best thing you can do for the students that want to be an activist is make them aware of that. Don't try to tell them like, oh, this is going to be easy, it's going to be a breeze. And then as adults, be there. I want to give a really good answer for this, but I think in the film you see how people like Miss Mary, Miss Claire, like all these adults in the community, how they just showed up for us. So whenever we did have one lady yelling at us right here, we had all this support behind us. So it almost was comical to have face this backlash, because we just had so much love, so much support. So it really it overshadowed any type of negativity that does exist, because the negativity doesn't go nowhere, but you kind of have to make that positivity louder.
Thank you. I didn't even ask for the shout out, but I'll take it. And I just want to echo some of what Izzy said. Another thing is, I think a lot of young people watch this movie and they're like, well, I'll do advocacy and I'll be in a movie. That does not happen to most of us doing advocacy. So thank you, Izzy, for that. The next today is Catherine Freely. Catherine is the course administrator at Global Water Center and a passionate advocate for equitable access to information, both in global education and in school libraries. She authored South Carolina's Freedom to Read Bill, H 4059, and currently serves as the legislative chair for the South Carolina Association of School Librarians. We call them SCASL. Catherine received the 2024 SCASL and SCLA, that's the South Carolina Library Association, Intellectual Freedom Award for her advocacy, and has more than a decade of experience as a classroom teacher and a school librarian. Whether designing training programs or writing policy, she works to ensure that all learners, no matter where they are, have the right to read, learn, and thrive. Catherine, thank you for being here. So, sorry, I have too many notes. Okay, Catherine, I have learned a lot about librarians in the last few years working on this issue, but I suspect many people do not realize the professional training and background librarians must have, or how they go about selecting materials for their library. Can you tell us a little about the qualifications school librarians have, and also the process you go through to select appropriate materials for your library?
Thank you so much. I'm so thankful to be here. I would say that the first step is to make sure you have a stellar cardigan collection and spectacles ready to go. Perhaps the ability to put your hair, up in a quick bun. No, for so long it was wild. Most of our fighting was done to keep libraries relevant and fighting for people to really understand the importance of libraries and the cornerstone of many communities and many schools. And very quickly that turned into we're the most dangerous place to be in your community, allegedly. So as a school librarian in South Carolina, you have to be a certified educator, so you have to be a teacher. And then on top of that, you also have to get a Master's of Library Information Science. And so at minimum, all school librarians in South Carolina have to have at least 6 years of education. And then on top of that, we have ongoing professional development that we're required to do every single year. So the bar for professionalization of the sector is quite high, and many of us, we are paid as educators, and so we don't come in for it for the pay, and we do come in for it because we have a passion for our students, and we want to make sure our students have the most amount of access as possible and that they see themselves on the shelves. And so the way that we ensure that, the way that we develop our collection in a library is a bunch of different things, but first and foremost, we make sure that we know our community. We understand our students, we understand their needs, and likewise, we understand our teachers and what they need. We know our curriculum inside and out to make sure that we are supporting all the materials we get, support the curriculum, whether it's academic or social-emotional needs. We use multiple journals to make sure that we are vetting our books that we're ordering, everything from school library journal and book list and all these different things. We make sure we have at least 3 reviews for every single piece of material that comes into the library. So it's a lengthy process, and that was even before Regulation 43-170 came into effect.
So librarians are professionals and they work really hard to pick the books that are right for their library. Thank you for that. Just an interesting point, because this next question I'm going to ask her is to tell us a little more about SCASL, the South Carolina Association of School Librarians. But there's a librarian that I've gotten to know and befriend through SCASL and through my advocacy work. She's in Oconee County, I believe, and she's about 2 years older than I am. And she posted something on social media a few months ago about how much she loved the Ramona books when she was a little girl. And then she said that as a woman of color, there were no books in her school library that had little girls that looked like her, but she could relate to Ramona's personality. And I thought, what an insane concept. There wouldn't be a single book in your library with a character that looked like you. And I always think of that in part of the movie when Izzy talks about The Little Mermaid and how much representation matters. And librarians are trained to make sure that everyone is represented. So, speaking of SCASL, you're on the board for the South Carolina Association of School Librarians. Can you tell us a little more about this organization and how y'all support librarians across the state?
South Carolina Association of School Librarians has been around for over 50 years now, and we have over 1,000 members across the state. So we represent school librarians and teachers and educators and administrators all across the state. Our primary function really is to support our school librarians and their students. The ways that we do that have changed, especially over the last few years since COVID and everything you saw in the film. So one of the first things we do is make sure that our school librarians feel supported, that they have the professional development they need to develop their skills and become the best they can at their job. We often are the first call too when something is challenged in their library, or when they have been called out on social media, when they have been threatened or their families have been threatened. We often have been the first call for that, and that's not hyperbolic. It happens. It has happened multiple times to multiple librarians that I know personally. And so apart from being an advocacy organization and leading professional development and amazing conferences every single year, we also have had to start being quite bullish about protecting our school librarians in doing their job and allowing them to be free from harassment. So SCASL has written standards for our school librarians and across the students of South Carolina, and we've had a really great relationship with the South Carolina Department of Education until approximately 2 years ago. And that's when our current superintendent took over as superintendent, and we were notified that we were no longer working together. We got broken up with, essentially. And so it was not it's me, not it's you, not me, not you. It was very blatant that we were our ties to the ALA and our radical rhetoric was just not in line with what they wanted anymore. And so all of this support and work that we've done for over 50 years, unfortunately, was no longer valued by the Department of Education.
So one of the things on the list that we have for you to take home is that anyone can be an associate member of SCASL for $15 a year. That's it. And there is a QR code at the bottom you can scan that takes you right to the page where you can be a member, and that's an easy, simple way to support our school librarians in South Carolina. Plus, you'll get emails from them, not a ton, don't worry, but very informative. Lots of information about legislation and ways that you can be involved if you want to help advocate for librarians. We also have in the lobby some Freedom to Read South Carolina tote bags, which I'll tell you about Freedom to Read in just 1 second. These are bags that a bunch of organizations in the state donated to have made for SCASL's annual conference, but we printed some extras in the hopes of using them to generate some funds. And so if you're interested, they're like reusable grocery bags with a big square flat bottom. I love them. They're in the lobby, and if you are willing to make a $5 donation, it will go to SCASL and the work they do with the librarians in training, being peer mentor librarians. Okay, last question for you, Catherine. Last legislative session, H 4059, the Freedom to Read bill, was introduced by Representative Heather Bauer. Since you wrote this bill, can you give us an overview of it and let us know how we can help the bill gain traction next legislative session?
You're so good at that. Among many other things, like rocket science. So yeah, there was something in the film where they were talking about how Texas leads the country in book bans, and unfortunately we have taken that title over the last couple years. So now South Carolina leads the nation in book bans. We currently have 22 books that have been banned across the state of South Carolina, and as Mary was saying, many of those have already been reviewed by very diverse review committees, and they were kept in Beaufort, and then because of Regulation 43170, they were deemed inappropriate for all students in the state. And so seeing that and seeing just the harm that that regulation has caused, hearing about some of the stories that my fellow librarians have undergone as far as on social media being attacked, sitting at the State Board of Education building in a meeting and hearing a person, multiple people, but one in particular that sticks out in my head, call us groomers and pedophiles, and basically said that we lure children into the library with the promise of a pizza party to look at pornography. Not making that up, literally said it. And that's terrifying. That's horrible. These are people who dedicate their lives to education and working with students and providing access. And so I was so tired of being on the defense that we needed to do something that we could fight for. And so that's where H 4059, who hopefully will become Bill 4059, came about. And so what it does is protect our students' rights to diverse literature. That's number one. Number two, it outlines a systemic process for book challenges across the state so that it is uniform, because oftentimes some counties will have a very strict review policy, whereas Beaufort's, it was extremely comprehensive. It will protect school librarians working within the context of their jobs and their positions, and it ensures that all of our students will be able to see themselves on the shelves and see their lives reflected back at them, and then also see and be exposed to other types of viewpoints. And so we were so happy to have Heather Bauer from Richland County be our first sponsor, and we have 20 sponsors now, which is incredible. I want to be proven wrong with what I'm about to say. I don't think it's going to pass, and I have to be okay with that, writing it, because I have to know the state that I'm in. But in writing it, it's going to force people to stand up once it does get a hearing and say, no, I'm totally fine with librarians getting attacked. I absolutely want to restrict what students have access to. And so, if nothing else, at least we'll know who people are.
Thank you, Catherine and Izzy. We are going to go to questions. I just want to tell you quickly again about this handout. So the first QR code, if you scan, you can learn about Freedom to Read South Carolina, which is a coalition of organizations like SCASL, like FAB, Families Against Book Bans, and other groups across the state who are working together to try to protect the freedom to read and to fight for our educators and librarians. If you scan that QR code, you can find a link there to read the bill that Catherine wrote, articles about the coalition, and our social media, if you want to follow us there. The middle QR code is FAB's information. We are Beaufort County based, but we have members from everywhere, and I would encourage you to follow our social media and get involved with some of the work we're doing. This fall, the Freedom to Read Coalition and FAB and SCASL will likely be promoting that we will have postcards we're asking people to send to champion that Freedom to Read bill. We want to make a loud noise about wanting that to pass, so as Catherine says, the people who oppose it have to say that publicly, that they don't care about protecting librarians. I know you saw a little of this in the film, but we have librarians in the state whose lives are being threatened because of book banning issues. Quite literally getting emails explicitly outlining how they will be harmed, and we have to stand up for them. I always say that in 50 years, I think we'll look back and be like, can you believe they went after the librarians? But they are, in fact, going after the librarians, and it's brutal and it's exhausting for our librarians. So that brings me again to the third QR code, which is how you can just join SCASL. And $15 for the year, you're a member, you'll get their information, and you can support the work they do. So I think that's all the questions I have. You have a microphone? Oh, FAB is Families Against Book Bans, and we were founded right after all this started in Beaufort. Our mission statement is to advocate for intellectual freedom, to champion teachers and librarians, and to promote socially just and equitable public education. So anything under that umbrella, you'll find us making noise about. Thank you.
I work for the public library here in Charleston, and
Bless you.
it's been slower coming to Charleston, but book bans and wanting to control what kids read and even what adults read is picking up in the public libraries. So I know this is about schools, but I also want to say public libraries are now feeling it also. And I also wanted to add that if you have a Charleston County Public Library book card, you can watch this movie on Canopy for free.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I just want to echo that, and FAB does work with the public library and the pay attention to what's happening in the upstate, you will see what's coming to Charleston and Beaufort Public Libraries. Greenville County has been sued by the ACLU for the library policy they've created, but since then, Anderson County, Pickens County, and Lancaster County are creating similar policies where they're essentially taking any book with LGBTQ plus characters and moving them to an adult section, any book that has a range of like for 14 to 18-year-olds and saying it has to be in the adult section. So we're seeing teen sections with nothing on the shelves. This is something Freedom to Read is very involved in. We're in communication with folks across the state. We have literal boots on the ground everywhere, and people are working hard, but we need more help. And you need to go like give your librarians a big, huge hug. One of the items on the list is to give them a thank you note, but if you ask permission first, I would also say they probably need a hug. And then Catherine, I think you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so often in the beginning of the fight, even recently, when especially advocates, members of Moms for Liberty would stand up at school board meetings, they would say, we're not banning books. We just don't want them in schools. You can still get them in public libraries and on Amazon and whatever. We know that that comes from a very privileged place because not everybody has access to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and whatever, but they do have access to the public library, which is now being attacked. So it's scope creep. You know, it started in schools, and now we're seeing it permeate not only through public libraries, but now even to publishing.
So I just wanted to add to what you were mentioning. We have it right here in our backyard. I live in Berkeley County. I used to work in Berkeley County. Our Berkeley County public library system has now been taken over by the majority of Moms for Liberty supporters. In addition to that, in Berkeley County, we do have a school board member who single-handedly tried to challenge 93 books, and then halfway through our committee hearings and meetings admitted that she did not read them fully. So when you say, Mary, that we can see it in the upstate, it is already here. And knowing that I love where I live, I send my children to those schools. This has become a serious problem because our librarians have been attacked. Our teachers have been attacked in public comments, whether or not their names have been said. They know that they are being actively threatened. The last thing I want to add to that is in Berkeley County, it was in the fall of this past school year that teachers discovered that their children no longer had access to Discus. And if you're not familiar with Discus, Discus is an online database that has been vetted, that has been professionally approved, and continues to be vetted by our professionals. Berkeley County School District is the only district in the state that has pulled that access for our students without any explanation to the community or parents. When parents and community members did ask questions and spoke up, it was the district that released a statement that said that these were individuals that were creating, quote, manufactured outrage. So I share all that to say with you all that what we are seeing in Beaufort County in 2022, it's already here, folks. And so if you support your teachers and if you trust in your teachers to do what's best for your children, then please, we're just asking you to show your support. And Catherine, I want to especially thank you because legislation is that first start, because when we want to say we don't want to get involved politically as educators, the sad reality is that everything is political and everything's based on policy. So it's time for us to start speaking up. So thank you, ladies, for what you do.
I think you made a really good point about everything being about policy. So I had brought up a little bit before that I wanted to leave law, that I was like, I'm just done with it, I'm fed up. I was like, I'm just gonna go focus on my rockets and everything will be great. From the beginning we said that this is not about the books, this is gonna come for everything. Recently, the Trump administration proposed a 47% budget cut to NASA. That would end NASA as we all know it. We wouldn't have, we're already seeing the effects of that, because I don't know if you guys know this, but NASA and NOAA, the National Oceanic something, they do weather. They are the people that, those weather alerts that you get on your phone, that's them. NASA, they operate the satellite flights. We see people dying because they don't have alerts about flash floods, about poor weather conditions. So it spreads so far beyond just the books. And I knew that. I knew it wasn't just about the books. And it still blindsided me that, this organization I just got involved in, not organization, agency I just got involved in is like, oh, hey, so we might not be able to give you a spot next year, by the way. And even on LinkedIn, some of my mentors and stuff, and some of the engineers and rocket scientists that I've been trained by, at least the younger ones have resigned. I've seen on my LinkedIn in the past week 5 engineers who have resigned who were in their 20s because of the budget cuts. And it's just like, that's insane. That is insane. And then I applied for a bunch of programs this summer, 2 of which I got accepted into they were through the Department of Energy, because nuclear power, that all goes through the Department of Energy. Both of those programs were removed because of the budget cuts done by the Trump administration because they were DEI. So yeah, there is no escaping this. I mean, you could literally go to the moon, it will find you. So please get involved no matter what.
And I'll just add to that, please stop for dinner. It is happening everywhere. It's happening in every state. Nobody is removed from this or as removed as they think they are. The last thing on your list you have is to contact your state Board of Education representative. Dr. Christian Hanley represents Charleston and Berkeley counties. He needs to hear from more people who don't want books taken away, because he needs to be swayed. I'll just say that. So his email address is on here, and I will say that he responds to emails, or he has, and I'm not even a constituent of his. So please get involved and please support our educators and librarians.
I'm gonna try to go through my whole spiel. I am an immigrant. There was a part that you talked about in the documentary about your upbringing that I felt very seen. I think you are pretty much me when I was little. However, my relationship with books was a survival mechanism. Today, I am a public librarian. I work with teens. And so the messaging that all of this is sending, some of them do not receive. I think my biggest hope and some things that I've seen have been amazing parent involvement with their children's reading. That is what we hope for. But there's a lot of ways that teens show up in our library that their parents don't know about, so we get to see a part of them after they've been in the classroom for hours, coming and waiting for their parents to be picked up without a meal. And so we have a lot of energy going on, and we have to keep them safe. So there's a lot of messaging, with the removal of books. There's people that they have a lot of awareness. So my biggest thing is always encouraging, parents to be involved, adults to be safe, to be trusted with their children's struggles. So I love the fact that, I get to serve everybody without the burden of a financial transaction. But I think the advocacy for public libraries as well is super important, because we have to serve everybody. We cannot bring politics into our service. So that community involvement is super important in how we're able to do our job and have longevity into the service that we put into our communities. That's it. I don't have it, but I see you. I am so happy that you found something that you feel passionate about, and I love that there's a lot of organizations putting in hard work.
Thank you so much. One thing I want to say about a lot is that my father was actually deported to the Dominican Republic whenever I was 5. And so my relationship with my dad has existed solely over the phone. I actually thankfully get to see him the first time since then, this December, that's insane to me. Just like not being seen, not being heard is just, that's the biggest thing that you're taking away when you're taking away the books, you're taking away voices, you're taking away stories, you're you're taking away just people's liberty to, you know, live in their own skin, live in their own stories. So thank you for sharing that.
As a retired South Carolina school teacher, I'm well aware of the standards that all public school teachers must teach. And these things are wonderful that have words like compare and contrast, you know, that the learner will. So